Hey there, welcome to Data Democracy. This is a podcast where we explore ways to make data and AI more accessible to everyone. I'm super excited to have our dear friend Matt Layton today on the podcast. Matt Layton in the house. Matt is the Senior Vice President of Data Insights and Intelligence at LegalShield. He also advises startups consulting on the side. Matt is also involved in community service and leadership. He was the vice mayor and councilman of Ada, Oklahoma. He's also a rancher who took me ranching one day and it did not go well. Let's just say I was more of a hazard than help. Matt was my boss for a long time, and I've just learned so much from him. And Matt's like John McClane of leaders. He's always got your back. If you mess anything up, he just absorbs it and takes care of it. He says you're not learning if you don't make mistakes. All he asks is don't make the same mistake twice. Matt's been such a solid support system for me, for the podcast. I'm just thrilled to have him here with me. Matt, welcome.
Hey man, thanks for having me. We've been trying to put this together for a really long time now, and I've been jealous watching all your other episodes, and I haven't been on yet. So finally,
I was so excited. Let's do this. Um, yeah, let's start with your story. How did you get where you are? What's your story?
hey, well, you know what? I think at the end of the day, my story is you know, mid 40s, and I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up, right? I'm interested in a whole lot of different things, love to learn, and probably spread myself way too thin, but that's a good way to go through life, right? And like you kind of mentioned, I'm in data analytics now. Never thought or intended that's where I would end up, right? I went to college and I've got a political science degree. I was going to go to law school, got sick of school between, graduating undergrad and finally, going to law school. And I said, the heck with that. Went to work full time at a, little company called Prepaid Legal Services at the time, LegalShield, PPLSI now, and, kind of stayed there ever since. And, as I learned about that business, I kind of just moved through the ranks there. I like to say I've sat in just about every seat at that company, right? And I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, right? I was, other folks either wanted me or the current folks wanted to get rid of me. But anyway, it's helped me create a knowledge base that I think probably meshes well with my, you know, love of learning and, always looking for new. And that kind of just lands me right in kind of analytics, business insights. I know the business. I love digging through the data. I've always said I think the answer's there. I mean, if you have enough data, the answer's there, right? You just have to, have the smarts and the tools to mine it out. And, you know, you kind of mentioned politics. Again, I had a political science undergrad, so I kind of toyed in politics there. Was a local city councilman. Now I like to say I'm up to here with civic pride, right? I mean, I've always thought if I'm going to do that again, the next one's going to come with a check, because the last one certainly didn't. And again, I've always loved the outdoors. There's no cattle ranchers in my family, but I thought, you know what, I can give this a shot. So I mean, I like to say I'm a pretend rancher. I've been doing that for 12, 15 years now, right? It's probably a better tax write-off than it is a profit center, but it gets me out of the office, it gets me out from behind the computer screen, gets me out into the real, world at times instead of sitting here looking at Excel spreadsheets all day. And you know what? I will say I have had worse ranch hands come out to feed hay with me, but there is a proper way to carry a hay bale, and Mitty showed just about every ways other than the
There
proper
you go.
way. But
Hey,
you know what? But hey, again, you mentioned it early on. Mistakes are fine, just don't make the same one twice. I think Mitty taught himself not to carry.
yep,
So, all good.
yep, I never showed up on the ranch again, just the once. No, yeah, I think that's a great story, right? So that feeds right off, and you've been, like you said, you've been at every rank at LegalShield, and you're a veteran of LegalShield. I think there's so much to say about uh, understanding, gaining a deep understanding of a company, its business, especially at LegalShield. It's 50 years old, and we've been digging into data that never ends, and there's just so much. Um, Average tenure of employees around about 3 to 4 years. You and I are kind of anomalies, right? So you're in a different league. I just put myself in there as well. I've
Hey,
been
you
at
know what? I said I think I'm going on again. Me and you both, we do a lot of random stuff on the side, right? So we do a lot of different things, but as far as, working at LegalShield, prepaid legal services, I think I'm going on my 27th year now.
There you go.
Of course, I started when I was in elementary school, pay no attention to the white beard. I always I always joke is like I don't know if that's a good thing or this is just the result of a string of bad decisions that have caused me to be here 27 years. But hey, love it, love the company, love what I do. Most of all, I love the teams I've got to work with and kind of building teams go on and do better and bigger and better things. And that's probably the coolest reason that you would, want to build and run what I call high performing teams.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I never thought so either. Like that I would stay at a company for a really long time, and it's been about 8 years for now. But yeah, definitely 27 is awesome.
Long
Uh,
time.
but like you said, I mean, we both kind of do things on the side to keep us out of the bubble and keep us in the loop with outside stuff that's going on. Um, yeah, yeah. So if you were to, and I know we talked about it, if you were to kind of make the case for people staying longer at a firm, what would those be?
I think I lost you there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can.
Okay. Now, if we were to make a case for people staying at a company longer, what would those merits be?
I think you got I First of all, I think you have to enjoy the people you're there with.
Uh-oh. I think I
Very to the people that you have to be with every single day, right? I mean, if you don't get along and like the folks you're working with, I don't think the company itself or the mission or the vision matters, right? I,
yeah.
I think that's probably the number one reason that anyone would want to stay, right? Because I mean, yeah, of course you can say money. I want more money. I'm not getting paid enough, or the the job duties are boring, or I don't see a path to advancement, or I just don't believe in what the company is based on, or what the company's goals are, and all those things are valid, right? But at the end of the day, if you like the people you're working with, you're probably more interested in getting up in the morning and going, hanging out with your buddies, right? I think that's the kind of the team that we build, right? Mistakes are okay. No one's getting in trouble for screwing something up. Again, as long as you learn from it, right? And don't screw the same enjoy the people you're working with? Do you look forward to going hanging out with them every single day place, right? Because again, if you enjoy the folks you're working with, I think everything else lines up, right? You're going to get the pay's going to come, right? You're going to enjoy the projects you're working on. You're going to find value in the output of the team, even if maybe you're not, at least initially fully engaged in maybe what the company mission is.
Yeah, 100%. I think um, working with people you like makes things you know, a lot exciting and a lot more fun. Sweet. Um, I think we need to tell the audience about LegalShield because we're kind of the insiders and we need to. So tell us what's LegalShield and what do we do?
Hey, well, why don't Mitty tell us about LegalShield?
I think if if I meet somebody and I don't have a lot of time, I just say LegalShield is we're like a we're the Netflix of legal services. I know I'll get into trouble for it, but it's the basic premise is a subscription company for legal services and identity theft services. And we're the OGs. We've been around for 53 years now.
Yep, yep.
So this was before subscription model was cool. So we've been at it for a long time.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on, right? Whether you say Netflix, whether you say Uber, whatever it is. So really what we do is we connect again, exactly like Netflix, Uber, any of these other models. I don't even have to talk about legal or law, right? We connect a person with a want or a need to someone who can solve that issue or answer those questions, right? And we just do that for the legal industry. A lot of times, who knows? Do you even know a lawyer, right? Or are you afraid of how much of one costs? Or who do I call? Or my buddy's a real estate lawyer, but I've got a bankruptcy issue. I don't even know what to do, right? So again, we take that education and investigation out of the equation, and we give you access either through a mobile app, through a telephone, through the web to contact a law firm that's has experts in the legal issues that you're going to need assistance with. And it's as easy as dialing a phone or pushing a button on your app, and we'll immediately connect you to a lawyer who can answer the questions that you have, right? Again, I just always explain it as simple as, we connect a person with a need to someone who can solve the issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And again, I mean, founded in 1973, I think Mitty kind of hit on it. OGs of the subscription model business. I mean, that's fully in vogue today. Everyone wants to be in the subscription model business. We've been doing it and perfecting it for, you know, 53, 54 years now.
yeah, it's amazing, and especially the cost. We're able to bring the cost uh, down so much, and you've worked with the provider services division so much. How are we able to get the cost down to like $30 to $60 a month instead of $300 for the hour for typical
Sure.
lawyer
What do we
stuff?
what do we say is like less than a cup of coffee a day is kind of the
Yeah,
tagline. But then on the other side is like, okay, if some of these best lawyers are out there charging three, four, five, $600 an hour, you know, the question comes back to us, well, hell, what does a $30 a month lawyer look like? And is that who I want, solving my issues? But you hit exactly on it, right? It's the efficiency and the model that we've built. And, I really say it's our, competitive advantage. It's the moat around our business is our network of provider law firms that we've built throughout North America, the United States and Canada. almost 40 years average tenure with us. Again, these are full service law firms throughout the United States and Canada. And we really, and the model that we pay them on is really interesting, right? They don't get paid based upon the services they provide. It's a fully capitated model. It's you have an area of responsibility. Every single month, we're going to pay you per active member or per active customer within your area, regardless. I mean, Mitty could be a member, he could never use the service, but we're going to pay his provider law firm every single month that Mitty remains active. And that's kind of the power in numbers that we've created. And really it not only aligns, our company, but also the provider law firms, because retention matters, right? Mitty, you've been deep into retention. In the subscription model business, it's, cost per acquisition, lifetime value, right? How much do I have to pay to, create a new customer and maintain that customer? How much is that customer going to pay us over the life of the membership? We're directly aligned with the providers who provide our services and the company in order to maintain high, customer satisfaction rates. We know when we meet or exceed customers' expectations, they stay with us longer, right? And then honestly, the longer they stay with us, the less they use the service. And that's really when our provider law firms begin making a lot of money, but might have to put a little more effort in up front to like, all right, Mitty, you made a good choice. We're probably going to go above and beyond the first 1 or 2 times you call and you need any assistance. But at that point, you're sold, right? I mean, we do a lot of net promoter scoring. I mean, Mitty's a promoter at that point. If we meet or exceed his expectations on the first or the second time he uses the service, he's a member for life. He's most likely not going to cancel. And then again, that's where the snowball of the number of active members that we can maintain because we're meeting or exceeding customer satisfaction rates. We all make a whole lot of money there. And again, we've been doing this for 50 plus years. So I think we're getting pretty good at it.
Yeah, I think the company has nailed 2 things, right? Like you said, economy of scale, the number of people, and also aligning incentives with everybody's incentives together. So I think that those are key things that the company has nailed. Oh, can you hear me?
I think he kind of froze up on me, but hey, it's really that capitated model and that I couldn't tell if I lost you again.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't either.
My internet seems to be fine. Is Zoom weird today?
Ooh.
I don't know. Let's keep going and we'll cut it
Well,
out.
and so again, this is why I say our provider law firms and our capitated model is that, competitive moat, right, that we've built around the business. Who can start this from scratch today, right? What startup can build a network of provider law firms across the country, pay based on active subscribers and run the business, right? I mean, you can't start that today, right? So again, we don't want to sit here and rest on our laurels, right? And just let a new startup with AI or something sneak up and take over the world. But again, I think we're going to see someone coming from a long ways off just because of the network of provider law firms that we've built over 50 plus years now.
Yeah, the model only works once you have massive traction, and that's hard to reach.
Yeah, and hey, you're a data geek, data genius. Tell me, what do we think people are going to, either today or quickly in the future, are they going to get to the point where they're going to trust and believe an AI giving them legal advice, right? At what at what point does that tip over, right? I would say today that, probably some people are going to ask some basic questions, but I don't know how important of a decision someone is going to make today if they talk to an AI lawyer, right? But there is a point into the future, right? Especially as, AIs gets right. I saw something the other day. The AIs are taking IQ tests and they're, getting up close to genius level. So at some at some point it probably works, but I don't know when that tipping point or if there will be, right? If I'm making, really important life decisions that are based on, legal opinions from lawyers, am I ever going to be comfortable talking to a machine as opposed to, sitting across from a real person? That's the that's the one challenge I see potentially in the future of the business that, we're kind of employed with today. When do we employ AI more deeper? And if we don't, is that where someone's going to sneak up on us and take over?
Yeah, that's the billion-dollar question for companies in legal services, right? So I feel some of the lower hanging or low effort things will be automated and people will start trusting it if it's standard enough. So I'm trying to start a company now, and there it's all the same thing. It's the same forms, same this thing. I just don't know what it is. So for that, I could probably rely on AI to just tell me what these mean. So if it's like a very standard traffic ticket, I need to just do it. Those could be potentially automated, but legal issues are so complicated most of the times that even lawyers are have to be up on up to speed on new laws and stuff like that. So
Well,
I
and
think
even further, right? It's up to interpretation because a lot
interpretation,
of
yeah.
lot, especially a lot of these trials, it's what lawyer is, arguing the best, and
Yes.
so it's like I mean, are you going to have two AI machines in the room arguing with each other? I mean, so I 100% agree with your point, right? If I'm filling out forms, maybe the AI can ask me a set of questions that, pull out the answers, help me fill out the form. But I think at the end of the day, like if I'm if I've got a multi-million-dollar estate and I'm
Yeah.
doing a will and a trust, I I, I don't know. I don't know what AI's got to prove to me before I would be comfortable just totally agreeing with what it said, hit print and go, right?
Yeah. And large language models need to have seen the situation enough to be able to answer, but every situation is so different that it's hard. And you never know when it's making stuff up and when it's not. I mean, I'm in the industry. I work on AI, but there are limitations to it, and we need to address those. It's really cool, the technology, but there are things that I don't think can be. Um, we can use AI for everything at this point. Maybe
Yeah, because we always hear the guys talk about it, AI is not going to take your job. The guy using AI is going to
yeah,
take your job, right? But I think at some point all of this is going to be solved, right? So at
yeah,
what point in the future, and again, you've created lots of different AI models that answer a lot of different questions. At what point in the future do you think that we're going to solve that hallucination issue, right? Because again, you can ask the AI something today and it's confident and it's going to tell you XYZ, and it could be talking, you could ask it about how to start a fire and it's going to tell you how to make an ice cube, right? But it's going to be confident and lay it all out, right? But I think at some point, again, as as we keep investing more and more, right? And again, I think this is probably even a bigger question of, who's going to eventually rule the economies and maybe even the world, right? Because China and the US, probably the two main players, they're going to keep investing in this. They're going to keep perfecting it, and whoever figures it out the fastest first is going to win, right? So I think there's a point in time in the future that this probably gets solved. I just don't know how far we are away from that.
Yeah, yeah. I think the trick is to build smaller, more niche models for specific use cases. Because right now, the foundational models from OpenAI or Anthropic, any of these foundational models that are um, famous are basically trying to do everything all at once. It's the whole internet, it's a aggregation of the entire human intellect.
Mm-hmm.
I think as we build smaller models for specific use cases, if I'm able to train a large language model just to fill out um, traffic tickets, I can get that to be like 95, 98% accurate versus asking ChatGPT today. So I think that may be retrieval augmented generation RAG is a technique that you upload a lot of text or files or resources and say, hey, just look at this and nothing else. Look at this and answer from it, and that'll give us a lot of accuracy, but not flexibility. So it's a balance between flexibility and accuracy. So I think that's a good way to approach it for smaller companies that are wanting to build niche uh, tools that are solving real problems. I honestly think that's where we can actually make real impact from AI models
Mm-hmm.
solving real problems. This is really cool. This is like the foundational models are like the internet. It's everything for everybody, but really you need to build apps on top of it to solve specific problems, and that's where I think there's going to be a lot of startups come up that will solve specific problems.
Do you think the foundational models at some point in the future will kind of attach on to the idea you're talking about, and instead of just trying to answer a question over the entire soup of the online intellect, right? They're going to start grabbing up all these niche models that are built very specifically, but are very accurate and very smart, and then stitch those together in order to go back and just do what they attempted to in the beginning, one ring to serve them all, right? But it's made up of all these niche models that have proven themselves individually. And then maybe once, those can all be put together, it wins, right? Maybe that's how we solve the hallucination issue. And again, hey man, I am way outside my area of expertise. I'm a political scientist here, so I'm just pretending to know what I'm what
No,
I'm
you're
what I'm talking about. But I think you're right. It's what's the models best tuned for, right? And are the computers smart enough, strong enough, have enough power, right? Because we've seen, I think even OpenAI talked about whenever they pushed out this new image generator and everyone was making the cartoons and all this stuff. I think Altman came out and said their processors were literally
yeah.
melting in the machines and they had to turn it all off, right? So, maybe the functionality that we're building into some of these models is far ahead currently of a lot of the hardware that we've even got that we're trying to run it over, right? So it seems like it's a race on both, right? The hardware that we're building to run it, and kind of the software that we're developing that's getting smarter and smarter.
Yeah, it's definitely both sides, and also like you mentioned about, hey, is, say for example, OpenAI going to build all of these little niche models as well. I I was thinking about it, and I think we have an analogy to this in the mobile era, right? Apple and Google could have built all the apps. They knew how to do it, but it wasn't in their, I think it wasn't their expertise to build all these apps, Uber and even LegalShield app. So we are the experts in Legal Shield's use case. So we build an app for it versus Apple doing a half good job at it. So I
Right.
think that's where I think there will be a lot of startups that come in and build AI models on top of the foundational models because and then OpenAI can take a 30% cut like Apple is doing today, and then that's how they win, and that's how the others win.
Or is that how someone beats OpenAI or Grok or Gemini or something, right? Somebody with really deep pockets comes in and just starts buying up all these niche models, puts them together, and now all of a sudden I've got the super AI, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Who
There are
knows?
super apps now, WeChat in China, and they kind of do everything all at once. So it is possible. So again, it's
And I wonder, did WeChat build it all themselves, or did they just start buying smaller companies and piecing them together?
hmm,
That'd be interesting.
yeah, I don't know. So it's a good question to ask. I think yeah, Tencent may own. I don't know.
Don't
Yeah,
they own or don't they own TikTok?
yeah, Tencent. Yep, that's the
Interesting.
same company. I think it's super interesting. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's fun.
But hey, it is fun. And again, it's kind of back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Again, LegalShield, the company that we're working for, we've got 53 years of data, right? And not only until about 10 or 15 years ago did we ever even get serious about mining that information. What's that data telling us? How do we run the business from a, data direction instead of just a feeling or a thought, right? Because again, and I'm not knocking either method over the other because up until 2010-ish, right? We were founder led, founder driven, right? The guy that started the company in 1973, he was the CEO, he was the leader, charismatic leader. I mean, he was driving the direction of the company. And again, when you're in something from the very, very, very beginning, you might miss some nuances of the data, but you've built something, it works, you've been successful. So I think intuitively you kind of know what's happening in the business, how to move, how to make decisions. And it was really only after he stepped down did we really begin diving into all the data that we had. Again, 50 plus years of information. And we had all that data, right? Because again, the software and the systems that we use to run the company were all, in-house built, right? So nothing was outsourced, all the data maintained on site. And at that point, we kept everything, right? Regardless of whether we used it or thought we might use it, or if it was good data or if it was bad data. I mean, we kept it all. So it was all there. So we really had an interesting playground. And probably a little bit before MIDI, we started going down this direction. But really, when you joined the team, I mean, we kind of exploded in the intelligence, right? And I like to say we create actionable intelligence, right? We're not an analytics team that just creates spreadsheets and just blasts out data to the entire company, right? One, who cares? And two, we ain't got time to read spreadsheets, but what's actionable? Do some analysis, find your data, have the data to back up what you're saying, but the power, right, or the value is in the analysis and how can we apply this to the goals of the company, right, or the direction that we're going in. And not to pat myself and you on the back, but I think we got really, really good at that, and we learned a lot of things specifically around the subscription model business and retention of those subscriptions. Because at the end of the day, if you're paying $400 to acquire a new member and they're paying a $30 monthly subscription, do the math, right? They have to stay around quite a while before you begin to make any profit or any real revenue on that person. So membership retention is extremely important. And Mitty, you've been, I think, one of the pioneers on how we've gotten as good as we've gotten on retaining members, lowering churn, increasing member satisfaction. And again, all of that's come from data. And as we've gotten smarter, you've gotten extremely versed and really good at building these AI models, these chat models that are pulling out a lot of these insights that I never would have gotten to, or it would have taken me 3 months of just only working on that data to even find half of what some of the new insights that we've been churning out. So kind of taking it from the very, very top, artificial general intelligence, open AI, just down to what we're doing every single day. We're head and shoulders above where we would have been if I still just had a team of analysts chiseling data out of an Excel spreadsheet.
No, appreciate that. And yeah, definitely it's a really strong team. Like shout out to Kevin Hardcastle and Sam Harris, OGs of retention, and yeah, Vanessa Martin-Glass, so all the good people. It's really like you said. I think it comes down to data and technology in service of business to provide actionable intelligence versus just there's a lot of teams that get bogged down in building the best technology
Mhm.
for the use case. The technology is so complicated and so fascinating that people lose sight of the actual use case for it.
Yeah,
Uh,
and hey, I think you're hitting on an extremely important point that I don't hear talked about enough, and I try to talk about it every chance I get, right? And it's exactly what you're talking about, that marriage between technology and the business, right? When I'm out looking for a new analyst or a team member, or I've got an opening on the team, my inbox is flooded with, data engineers, statisticians, I like to code. I'm all about technology. Or I'll get a whole list of folks that, I've got a MBA, I love the business administration, I know front and back the textbook on, how to run a business, how to do meetings, how to project manage, all this stuff. But really, I call them the unicorns of, analysts, is how can we find someone that's, probably not the top or the best at both, but can do both, understand both, and, like both, right? Because again, for us to do our job well, we've got to be versed in the technology. We've got to understand the data. We've got to know what it's telling us. And we also have to understand the business objectives, what it is that we're trying to accomplish. What are the sales targets? What are the churn targets? What are
yeah.
their cancellation targets? And how that data speaks to us in a way that we can implement what we learn into the business to meet the objectives. That's kind of the person that I don't see that's being trained out there, right? I mean, someone can go to business school and then maybe get a computer science degree, but there's there's not a good way, at least today, that I see in education that's creating that person that can do both. And again, I think that's what a lot of companies have trouble with or fail, because then we end up siloed ourselves, right? We've got the tech geeks and nerds over here, and we've got the business MBAs with their ties over here. And these suckers can't even talk to each other, right? Or they're talking past each other. There's like, oh, I can't work with them. They don't understand the technology, right? And then the business guys goes, they don't even know what it is that we're in business for. They're talking about, pipelines and moving data and blah, 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 right? But again, you've got to find, if you can't find enough of those people to build out the team, then you need to find a handful of really good, right, to help bridge that divide. And I
Yeah.
think that's where you create a really high performing, powerful team is when you have, a core group of folks that understand technology, data, and how the business is run. And
No.
those people are hard to find, right? And a lot of times I think we kind of err on, building or creating that person, right? So I mean, I think when you're interviewing or talking to a person, you can kind of see, are they leaning tech data? Are they a business acumen type person? And I
Yeah.
found it's probably, I mean, as long as the person's willing, I think it's easy to like teach the opposite side that they're not good at if they're willing to do it, right? Not everyone's willing to do it, right? I've seen data engineers that I don't think they care nor want to know anything about the business, right? And the same way with business people. I don't care about the data or any of the technology. I just got to meet my sales quota, right? So again, it's a special person that can do both of those things
Yeah.
and turn the data into value for the business.
Yeah, 100%. I think you got to get it all together. And honestly, I think the technology piece is being solved by technology a lot of times. Like, uh, I could chat with ChatGPT and understand and figure out technical stuff that I'm not super good at. But I think as long as the person is willing to go find out the answer, I think we can get there. But yeah, it definitely has to be a balance.
Hey, and so that just brings up another point, and I've got a question for you, and this is probably heresy for me to even mention this, right? But one of the things that I kind of run into is, technology is great, all these softwares and services and systems that, you know, generate dashboards and data and reports. So, we use Tableau a lot. Great tool, wonderful, saves my guys a whole lot of time. We're not building Excel spreadsheets and dashboards in Excel. It's automated. We've built the logic, updates daily. Beautiful. That the answers are always there. But then at some point, do you lose the knowledge and the detailed understanding of what even that data is, right? And where is that data coming from that's generating that dashboard? And if
Yeah.
if something's a little bit off, how long do you leave it kind of monitoring this dashboard before you decide there is a problem? To where if you were like intimately in the data on a daily basis, you would know like immediately that something was off. So I struggle with this problem, right? Because our output is so much better. The data is, almost immediate. Everyone can see it. People can self-serve. My guys can probably be working on bigger and better problems as opposed to creating some of these reports. But then I also worry, and I see it, myself included. I'm losing a lot of the, fundamental intelligence and education of what some of that data is. So I guess it's a trade-off, but at what
Yeah.
point are we so far removed from the base data that no one can explain the business anymore? I do worry about that.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's definitely a trade-off, and it's like, oh, nobody on the team knows if something breaks. So we've kind of built on top of foundation if nobody takes care of the foundation. maybe it's rotting and nobody is looking at it, and it's becoming a you know building that may fall.
And it's not even that maybe no one is looking at it, right? Three or four people ago have
Exactly.
built it. So I don't even understand enough to know that it is rotting, right? Or there
Yeah.
is a hole. I don't even understand the logic that was used to build this because I don't understand the raw data because the guy that was in my seat, 6 iterations ago built this, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just making sure that I get a successful run every morning. I don't know what's running anymore. That
Yeah.
that does worry me.
It's the same thing with computers and software, right? So you have the assembly language, which is what really computers understand, and then you have C, which is a higher level language, which kind of makes it easier for humans to understand, but it translates it to assembly language, and then you have all these other languages, Python, Java, all those things. Now we have AI writing code. Vibe people are vibe coding, so
Hmm.
they just tell AI what to do. But the thing is, it is still going down into assembly language. It's getting converted into ones and zeros, and that's how really computer understands it. But something fundamentally breaks. Nobody 10 levels above, nobody knows how to fix it. I feel like companies need to be aware of it and probably have one or two people who are experts in that, value them, and not just go after the shiny things and like you said that the new things that we can build on top of the foundational things. That's cool and important to be more efficient, but really don't underestimate the value of the people who actually the one or two people who actually are experts in the ground level
Yeah,
uh,
no, I
foundational
I
stuff.
I call that your, institutional knowledge base, right? You've really got to protect that core. And again, I always lean back to folks instead of the technology, right? It's great that the tech stack's working and it's built all these layers and it's wonderful. But again, I think you need to protect a core group of folks that fully understand that, right? Maybe they've been here since day one and they built the first line of code on which everything else is built. I think those people are invaluable to an organization
Yeah.
because they're the only people that's got that chain of custody all the way back to the beginning and fully understand what it is that the machines are doing, right?
They're the Herculeses that are holding everything together.
They are.
I mean, the other side of
Because again, just like we talked about earlier, if and when we turn all this over to AI, the AI is confident, right? Whether it's right or wrong, it's going to tell you exactly what, it thinks and believes. We're gonna read it. We're gonna start repeating it and telling everyone else. And then, I mean, it gets down to a point that it's like truth is relative, right? I mean, whatever the most of the people believe, that's now the truth, right? Right or wrong, that's the way it is. And
yeah,
that's it's dangerous.
it is dangerous, and it's yeah. I think that there's the other side of the argument is, hey, have really good documentation for everything is the other side, but it's hard to
Have
document
you
everything, and
have
it's a
have you worked or been in a company or seen any documentation that you considered really good documentation? I mean, I've seen good documentation. I don't know that I've been in a situation where I'm like, oh my goodness, this documents all the way down to day zero, right? This is
yeah.
this is wonderful. So hey, I completely agree. Documentation is good. It's hard to do that correctly.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's hard to scale that culture of documentation, and even then, like a person at level 10, it's really hard for them to really even if the documentation is present, it's hard for them to really understand the read the document and get to the core of the problems if
Sure,
something
right? So it's like
right.
the documentation's written all encompassing and to know it all, but then how do you write it in a way that a brand new person can understand, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I have this issue daily again, because I've been with this company for a long time, and I catch myself speaking to brand new to where it immediately clicks in my brain is like, we're not even speaking the same language.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know exactly what I'm talking about. And, to an extent, I do. They think they know exactly what they're talking about. And to a different extent, they know what they're talking about. But we're not communicating because the language is so different. I know things that they don't. They're bringing in new things that I've probably never heard of. So again, even if you've got the best documentation, who who is the audience, and is
Yeah.
you have to have different level, you have to have different translation layers depending on who it is that's even looking at it, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned it, like the core of the uh, solution, if you will, is to protect the folks that are there from day zero and understand everything. It's hard to if everybody is looking at the new cool things that those core people might feel undermined, but yeah, it's as leaders, it's our job to make sure that they're protected and taken care of.
Hey, but you know what? The brand new person may come in and know the best way to change everything, right? We may have been doing it wrong all along, and this new person's got the greatest and best idea, right? But until or unless they understand everything that came before them, I don't think it's possible for them to improve upon a system that they don't even understand, right?
Yeah,
Theoretically high level, you may have the best new programming language, and I can build this app and lay it on top, and it's just going to be beautiful.
yeah,
But I do not think it can work unless there's humility on both sides, right? The old person and the new. The old person's got to explain what's went on and understand that there probably are better ways to do it. And the new person's got to understand that, hey, this may not be the best way, but it's been working for a really long time. And the more I understand, the better I can improve it, right?
right.
And a lot of times you just have an ego clash and nothing gets done at all, right? Or things get done and they just start breaking because no one took the time to explain to the old and the new guard. There was no meeting of the minds in order to create something better.
Yeah, it's always the I know the solution mindset versus
It is
know it
the
all mindset
ego.
versus learn it all mindset, right? It's hard. Yeah, I mean, I can we can talk about this for forever, right? Um, so let's go back to kind of uh, data at LegalShield, and you've pioneered the system of closed loop uh, infrastructure and data that leads into uh, cool stuff like consumer stress index, and let's dig into that.
Sure. So kind of talk about the Consumer Stress Legal Index, or the CSLI, right? So on any given month, we service, 150,000 requests for legal service, right? Again, that ebbs and flows due to the month, but on on average, we get 150,000 requests for service a month. And we've been doing that again. We keep talking about it a long time, 50 plus years. So then we got to thinking again, there's got to be some truth that lives in this data, right? I mean, back to January 2002, we've got 35 million individual requests for legal service. So it's like, what can that tell us? First, we started looking at it in terms of our business, right? What can we learn from this data to improve our service, improve sales rates, improve membership retention. And we got a lot of really good information out of that, right? What age are the people? What legal services are they calling about? What areas of law can we then train our attorneys and lawyers to talk to a customer where they're at, right? You probably talk to a 20-year-old about a traffic ticket different than you talk to a 75-year-old about updating their will, right? And again, we like to say they don't teach customer service in law school, and it's true. And again and again and again, that's what we hear from our customers is the lawyer was rude, they didn't listen, they were short with me, they didn't take my issues seriously. Rarely do we get, complaints from our customers that the lawyer didn't know the law, they were a terrible lawyer. It's all of these, bedside manner, customer service type issues. So we've really begun focusing on, how do we improve those? And we talked about it a little bit earlier. We implemented net promoter scoring, NPS scores. So every time any of our customers access legal services, they get a survey and we generate a net promoter score for that person. This is kind of that closed loop feedback system you were talking about. And again, that's, as far as I know, it's unique in the legal industry and the kind of the legal services industry to have this. So our customer accesses legal services, they get their issue, resolved or not. They talk to a lawyer. We surveyed that member. That survey then generates a net promoter score. They can leave comments if they like. We then grade that net promoter score based upon the strengths and weaknesses at a law firm level and even an individual lawyer level. We grade individually, right? So every lawyer that's working in a month, we identify what their strengths and weaknesses are, right? We applaud them for their strengths. Yeah, let's go. And we have a training system for those specific weaknesses. Again, not identified by the law firm, not identified by their partner, not identified by LegalShield, where we're just picking on people. We're telling them what their weaknesses are as identified by the customers or the clients that they consulted with, right? We're not making any determinations here. The actual people are saying what they felt and thought about their interactions with a lawyer, and we're rolling that back to that lawyer through, we're reporting and telling them. And then we even have a LMS system to where we create specific trainings, right? We're not buying trainings off the shelf, right? Again, based on 50 plus years of data, we know the types of training, content, length, delivery method. We know those trainings that, create the best outcome when lawyers view them, right? And then again, we measure before and after. You had all these NPS score surveys. You were low in, listening attentively. Well, here's a couple of trainings we're going to push out to you that's, designed for lawyers just like you, who've taken these before, whose scores in those areas have improved. We drip out one or two trainings to you, you take them, we're measuring your NPS scores after, and overall, right, again, you got some bad eggs out there that's probably never going to improve. But again, the average overall, we see improvements from before the training to after the training. These scores go up in these areas. NPS scores go up. We know that, the NPS score is a leading indicator of future membership retention rates. As retention rates goes up, right, the active customer base goes up. The law firm gets paid more money because it's based upon a capitated model. Again, everyone is aligned on, where are the weaknesses? What can we do to improve,
Yeah.
and we all make more money, right? That's really power, I think, of the closed loop feedback system that we've built. It's strictly focused on continuous improvement. And again, at the end of the day, it's all aligned. We all make more money in this company when everyone is looking at the data. What are the actionable insights? How do we apply it to the business, and how do we improve?
Yeah, I think that that's the key part, right? So, what the company and you and the teams have nailed is the alignments of incentives. I think it's an easy proposition. Hey, we're here, we've churned through the numbers and look how what we could do to improve your bottom line. So
Yeah,
everybody's
or it's easy just to pick on a lawyer and say, you suck, right? All your members hate you, you're terrible, right? But again, we're kind of looking at it from the carrot version instead of the stick, right? I mean, okay, you've got, lower scores here. We have a system that's been proven to improve that score, right? Watch some of these trainings, think about what's going on and improve, right? So we're fully focused on increasing that net promoter score as opposed to just firing people, giving them bad scores and saying you're terrible, improve, right? That's not what we've done. We've created the improvement. We're helping them improve. And again, I'll just say, like overall, you look at Clio, I think the average NPS for the legal industry is, depending on, when you look, it's anywhere from, 27 to 30, 32, depending on the report. You know, on average, every single month, our NPS score is between, 54 and 58, right? Double the NPS score of the legal industry. And again, I think it's because we're focusing on these customer service related aspects, right? Meeting or exceeding the members' expectations instead of just like, we're just spitting law out at you, move on, churn to the next one, billable hours, right? Again, our model is not based upon average billable hours, right? We're going to bonus people because, oh my goodness, you billed 48 hours today. There's only 20. Woo. We're not even in that model. And I think it shows again, because, our customers, our members have double the net promoter score of the legal industry as a whole. And I think that's telling due to the way that, I think we've revolutionized the practice of law.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think it's the like you said, carrots versus stick approach, and it's not a it's a culture of learning and improvement versus culture of fear. Oh, I'm gonna get fired by LegalShield if I don't improve. I think that's never gonna help. And lawyers are, like you said earlier, our lawyers are really solid law firms. We don't doubt their ability to understand and implement the law, but it's just the bedside manners and some stuff that customers are telling us that we just relaying the message over to the lawyers.
And you know what? Hey, maybe the way we provide service isn't for all lawyers, right? Again, it's that customer service aspect, it's that bedside side manner that we've shown, not only that we think that we've proven time and time again, increases the entire, interaction between a lawyer and a member. If I'm your lawyer and you think I'm listening and and I'm consoling and I'm really understanding what you're saying, I'm letting you have your piece. I'm, we're feeling it, right? We're jiving. Even if I, lose your case or I don't have good information for you or I can't think of a way to help you solve it the way you want it solved, you're still feel better at the end of that interaction than if I cut you off, if I was short. I just said, no, no, you don't have any defense. You're screwed. Move on, right? So we see great scores and comments from members who lost their freaking case,
Yeah,
right? But they had a good interaction with the lawyer. The lawyer cared. The lawyer listened. The customer thought the lawyer did everything they could. It was just, bad set of facts, right? I lost this one, but by God, they were on my side.
Yeah. I mean, this may be a pro tip to lawyers everywhere, right? Because the large language models can nail the customer service aspect really well. Is that how people AI wins over bad lawyers with bad bedside manners? Because they'll make the AI systems will make people feel heard, and
Mhm.
listen to, and all that. Like, so I think it's really key, and it's the case everywhere, right? So even as data people or lawyers or any person, even for doctors, I think picking up on soft skills is going to be key going forward in the age of AI and as technology improves.
Yeah, it is for sure. But hey, I think I kind of went off on a tangent there. We kind of started talking about the
Yeah, yeah,
stress index, and then you mentioned closed loop systems. So I kind
I
of
love
thought
it.
I needed to explain kind of that service model first, but
No, I
kind of
love it.
back to the consumer stress legal index again, 30 35 plus million requests since the year 2000, 150,000 requests per month. We got to thinking there's got to be value in that data, right? It has to tell us something. This is a large enough data set, right? So maybe it not only tells us something about our business, but about the world at large, right? Or the United States, the North American economy. And that's really when we kind of stepped out and we began thinking, you know, are there any indicators in our data that could talk about any of the financial economic conditions of the North American household? And we did a lot of tests in the beginning, and what's interesting, we kind of landed on the University of Michigan does a consumer sentiment index, and the Conference Board does consumer confidence index, and both of those are kind of held up as like the the high most important reading in kind of what the consumer is feeling out in the market, and then how that talks to and impacts the overall economy. And what was really interesting, when we did a study of our data all the way back to 2002, right? So that's what, 23 years now. We saw an extremely high correlation with the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index, even up to we're a 45 to 60-day leading indicator of what that consumer confidence index is going to read, right? Extremely powerful. So, and then really what that what that says is, we like to say we've got hard data, right? Folks calling in, requesting services for specific issues that we've shown there's a high correlation to economic stress and economic confidence out in the market. We've got hard data versus what I call soft data, which is survey responses, sentiment data. So we're not going out and asking people what they think and how they feel about things. We're measuring specific actions and then extrapolating that onto the economy and saying, we're seeing consumer financial stress go up, it's getting worse, or it's going down. Things are getting better.
Yeah, I think this is how LegalShield's proprietary data can be tied to what's happening in the world, right? So that's
Sure,
really,
because I mean, I like to say folks don't call lawyers for a good time. They call because they've got a problem, right? And when we're seeing issues like calls for bankruptcy increase, calls for foreclosure increase, consumer finance issues, billing disputes, collections. Over the last 3 quarters, we've seen a slow but consistent increase in the consumer stress index, which tells us that, you know, stress is increasing, right? Folks are continuing to, feel squeezed by increasing prices, higher interest rates. You know, we've had high inflation for multiple years now. That compounded upon itself is really squeezing the household budgets, and we're seeing that again in daily in the requests for legal assistance that we're receiving for a lot of those, kitchen table consumer finance issues.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and also I think we need to clarify, make sure we inherently understand, but when we're talking about churning all these data, looking at um, what customers are talking about, we really we really have high level data and insights around it, but not anything related to client attorney privilege, where we don't, as Legal Shield folks, we don't have access to it, or we don't look at it.
Sure, right. We only look in aggregate at the highest level. The law firms themselves attach what we call an area of law to a specific request. So we don't know any of the details or the substance of any of these requests. We only know the category or the area of law that the law firm assigned to this specific request.
You've been really humble not to bring these up, but you've been killing it with doing a media spree with Forbes and Wall Street Journal and uh, CNBC, or a host of other this thing. So what I think you were brought in as an expert to talk about how, yeah, like what you said, how our data, Legal Shield's data relates to what's happening in the world. What are some of the insights that we're seeing from the data?
Sure, and it's just kind of what we've been talking about. You kind of mentioned, oh, we're getting some media attention. I like to say this is about a 10-year overnight success, right? We've been doing this index for a long time. It almost feels like no one was paying attention to it. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't, but certainly recently, kind of beginning with the election in November through current, we've been lucky enough to probably over the last 10 plus years kind of prove that, our data is legitimate. It does have these leading indications and it is valuable. It's up to the moment of the, economic of the American household. And again, what we're seeing, so the Consumer Stress Legal Index is kind of the high overarching index, and it's composed of several sub-indices: the Bankruptcy Index, Foreclosure Index, Consumer Finance Index. Those three roll up to the Consumer Stress Legal Index. And we're seeing, increased bankruptcies. And right now, so when the pandemic hit, we had a lot of government intervention that kind of, stopped payments on some bills, pushed out a lot of money to a whole lot of folks. So we saw bankruptcy filings, as reported by the U.S. government, go down significantly, and so did our index. But what we're seeing now is that bankruptcy index is back up to and moving above those pre-pandemic bankruptcy levels. And what's really key here is that our index is a 2-quarter up to a 6-month leading indicator of U.S. bankruptcy filings, with almost a 0.96 positive correlation, which you just don't find that out in the real world with data, right? But when we look at the U.S. reported bankruptcy filings and line that up with our index, again, we're a 2-quarter leading indicator, which leads us to believe through summer into the fall, we're going to continue seeing increased bankruptcy filings, right? And again, we talk about bankruptcy. I mean, folks just don't wake up one morning and start thinking about bankruptcy. That this is a process, right? I've had prolonged what we're going to call consumer financial stress over a long period of time, and it has been showing up for probably a year now. Again, billing disputes, collections issues, consumer finance increases in requests for service. As those have been increasing, really, since we can go all the way back to when we began increasing the interest rates that have been so low for so long, we can see X for consumer financial stress begin to creep up. Again, it's because I think we saw reports that the delinquency rate on paying the mortgages are going up, right? Revolving credit card debt is as high or higher than it's ever been before. And as interest rates remain high, those monthly payments are taking a bigger and a bigger and a bigger bite out of, whatever salary comes in, right? We like to say, when we talk to our lawyers, they tell us, folks are they they don't have any money left at the end of the month, right? But I still have a stack of bills.
Yeah.
So, which bills should I pay? Which ones can I push to the side? What's going to happen if I don't pay? Right? We've all of these questions kind of lead up to now we see the bankruptcy index increasing, but we've been reporting this all along. It's like, hey, stress is rising. Folks are having issues, but once we see that bankruptcy number tick up again, higher than what we saw pre-pandemic before all the government intervention, it's telling.
It's hard, and it's kind of depressing at times that we know some of these, we look at this data and okay, this is going to lead to something bad, or people are hurting, and we know that out of any of these mainstream indexes can report on, those are
Yep.
all usually lagging indicators.
Well, and then we like to, I mean, again, I may be pontificating a little bit here, but I think we try to stay out of narratives and politics and positions because again, depending on where you tune in to get your news, oh, the economy's going great. Oh, or oh my goodness, it's blowing up. The tariffs are going to increase prices through the roof. No one can afford anything. And then the other side's like, oh, this is the greatest thing we can do. Bring back. I mean, I'm not even commenting on any of that stuff, right? Again, all that we're commenting on is every single day we, field requests for help from people with issues, and then we're categorizing those requests. And again, over 20 plus years now, we based upon the request we see, we know where that leads, right? And we can foresee what those mean, right? So again, that doesn't care what color, red, blue, what your affiliations are, has nothing to do with this. We've got 25 plus years of data that says when we see X happen, we know that Y is extremely likely. And
Yeah.
right now we're saying stress has been high for a while now. Our bankruptcy index is a 2-quarter leading indicator of filings. We expect bankruptcy filings to continue to increase through summer into the fall.
Yeah, I think, to your point, I think regardless of what caused these things, we're just looking at the data and saying, okay, this is happening, so this is going to lead to X, Y, Z.
Yep.
Makes a lot of
Hey,
sense.
and then just real quick, they don't get quite as much play, but other than the consumer stress legal index and kind of those sub indices, bankruptcy, foreclosure, consumer finance, we also have a housing sales index and a housing construction index. And again, they track extremely closely, and they're a 30 to a 45-day leading indicator of housing starts and existing home sales, right? And again, so we're seeing kind of flat to maybe even a little bit lower on both of those indices. We can kind of go back to the increasing consumer stress and kind of lay those over, right, folks? A lot of people just aren't looking to, upgrade their house, add to their monthly obligations in terms of bills, right? And
Yeah.
then on the housing construction side, as these tariffs begin to pile up, especially when we're talking about Canada and Mexico, when we get a lot of lumber and kind of a lot of steel and a lot of sheet rock,
Yeah.
as those tariffs are layered onto those construction materials, builders are having difficulties, right? Should I pay this much more to build a house that may or may not be sold because consumer financial stress is up and delinquency rates on mortgages are already high? Can I afford to invest this much more into building a house that may or may not be purchased, right? So again, it's kind of a trickle down, right? When the average American consumer household is feeling stressed over a long period of time, all of these other, the housing industry certainly takes the hit on that too.
Yeah, no, I think it's really cool that you're able to kind of build these indexes that are kind of related to each other. I mean, in the economy, everything is connected to each other, right? So it's really cool to see that interplay
Mhm.
as a data person. But I mean, the results are kind of bleak sometimes. But
Yeah, the data is cool in and of itself, and right, building an index that correlates with something out in the real world and then moves, and it's then you can say, oh my goodness, this is a leading indicator. That's really super cool, right? But then when you can use that data again, every single day we talk about actionable intelligence. The data and index is cool, but so what? What the hell? Who cares, right? Until or unless you can apply it to something in the real world. And I think that's really why a lot of the kind of the major financial news outlets and medias are finally starting to see us and want to talk to us because we have created valuable data and we are talking about how it applies and how it's affecting the real world.
yeah, no, 100%. I think, yeah, if we don't impact either the business or outside world, we're just playing with toys in our garage. It may be really cool toys, but if it's not that, that's not what we're getting paid for, to build cool toys.
Right. Yeah, it's fun and it's cool, but who cares at the end of the day, right? You have to apply it to something.
Right, right, 100%. Cool. I think we can probably talk about I think your career in as a councilman. I think that you've got a really cool story about the election campaign and how you did that. I think please tell us about that.
Sure. So again, I'm kind of analyst on the side, always interested in politics. Can I run for a local election? And how do I use data to do this, right? And heck, I don't even know what the year was anymore. But 04, 05, 2003, maybe. I'm not sure what it was, but so I decided I was going to run for city council of the local, small city we lived in, Ada, Oklahoma. Ran for the first election. Most folks didn't know who I was, ran against an incumbent, got my butt beat. I was, upset, was just going to throw it all in. But the lucky thing was the elections lined up to where you had to run for a specific ward within where you lived, and there was an at-large seat, which anyone in the entire city could run for this at-large seat. So it just lined up to the fact that the at-large seat was up for election, and that's what I ran for and lost. The very next election cycle, the next year, my ward was up for election. So luckily, I stopped feeling sorry for myself shortly thereafter I lost, and I just rolled the campaign over. I was right. I was like, this is what I want to do. I can't let one loss beat me. So I immediately began running for the seat for the ward that I lived in. Just rolled the campaign over, and that's when I really got serious about. I don't see a whole lot of people out campaigning other than, they're putting yard signs up and then they may go to the Rotary meeting, in the morning or whatever, but that's it. So I got really interested and at this time, I don't know that Instagram was that big. There wasn't a whole lot of TikTok stuff. It was mainly Facebook was the main medium of social media. So I got really interested in and began researching Facebook ads, right? And again, no one else, at least at that point in time, I haven't looked at it recently, but I could geofence my Facebook ad to the city that I was in, right? So Ada, Oklahoma. And at this time, no, I think there was one other guy that had like an oil business that was running some Facebook ads in the area. So I got on Facebook, built up a couple of small ads. I had no competition, so I was paying like half a cent per impression. I mean, basically free for the for the volume of people. I mean, I think Ada is probably 30,000 people on a good day, right? I mean, I'm not sure what the population is today, but I was paying per impression. I had zero competition. I finally called the other guy that was running ads, and we kind of talked about, how we could, adjust our metrics to where we weren't competing or bidding against each other. So again, basically free ads. I did the yard signs, I walked door to door, but I think the biggest key was no one else was running those Facebook ads targeted to my area. So I was just basically just blanketed everyone that logged into the social media app with my city council ads. So again, use data. I went to the state election board. They will give you the full download of like the entire voter history, voter registration. When's the last time someone voted? When did they register? So again, because I didn't feel like I could walk and talk to every single person, or I didn't want to spend so much money to mail every single person on this list, especially those who weren't going to vote. Then I began sorting the list, right? Who's most likely to vote? And then I created a walking and a mailing list on those people that, I knew had an extremely high likelihood to vote in that election. Also kind of, tweak some of the targeting on the Facebook ads to go after these specific people. So, hey, long story short, the person I was running against, I think they had been on the council for 30 something years. I'd talked to a lot of, elders in the city. They're like, hey man, we're happy you're running, but you don't have a shot. No
Yeah.
one's ever beaten her. Like the president of the bank had just run against this individual and lost. So everyone's like, hey, good luck, but you don't have a chance. So hey, long story short, to this day, again, off cycle election, there was no presidential election. There was no other races on the ballot except me. There was 2 city council elections. To this day, largest turnout on an off cycle Ada city election. I think I probably got the largest amount of votes for a single candidate, more than doubled the votes of my opponent, who supposedly could not be beat, right? And again, I don't think it had anything to do with I was going to be a better councilman than this person. I don't think probably that many more people liked me than liked them. But again, it's the power of using data, having a goal in mind, collecting the information, analyzing it, creating actionable intelligence, applying it towards a goal, and just going through the process. I mean, really fun, and it probably cemented in my mind the power of data and what someone can do with it if they can harness it, right? If you can figure it out, and if you can harness what you have, anything is possible at that point.
Yeah, you're kind of the OG of data in politics,
It's
especially
funny.
social
Yeah,
media.
I wouldn't say that. Maybe social media political campaigning, right? And you know
Yeah.
what? Probably, it was really fun. Loved every second I was on the council, but I probably realized that, I liked the campaigning and the strategy better than the governing, right? Again,
Yeah.
loved every
Yeah.
minute. Wouldn't trade it for a second, but I was super pumped when I won, and it's exciting. And then a day or two later, I'm like, what have I done? What have
Yeah.
I gotten myself into?
It's 2 entirely different job descriptions, right?
It is, right? And honestly, and it's politicians get a bad rap and a bad name, and a lot of times deservedly so, but kind of that campaigning politician, you have to have a totally different mindset from
Yeah.
campaigning and selling yourself to actually governing, right? Because this big ego person over here that says I'm the best, I'm better, vote for me. That's not always the best way to govern and, lead.
Yeah, how do you
You got
switch
to be able to
over from
switch.
the big ego, big charisma to a servant leadership mindset?
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
and again, I think that's why a lot of politicians get a bad rap is they never make that transition, right? They
Mhm.
stay in this, I'm the best, big ego, look at me. And they don't move over to, I'm here for you, right?
Yeah,
I'm serving you.
yeah. It's yeah, not everybody can get that. But yeah, I think your story is maybe a lesson for me and everybody in the data space is, like you said, how do you I think it all bring it all together, right? So you you went in and deeply understood what the uh, issues were. You looked at the data, gathered the data, understood the data, and then implemented, created actionable insights from it, and then implemented it. So it's all of those aspects have to come together to make a business objective, business goal achievable, or in politics or business or anywhere.
Yeah, and any one of those on themselves would fail, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if I'm just really good and love data, oh, great. I mean, I make myself happy, but what do you improve, right?
yeah,
So you've got to take it one step at a what can the data do, right? How can I use the data to do X or Y, right? That's the question we should all be asking ourselves is what can I learn from the data? How can I implement it? What results can I create?
yeah, yeah. That's really cool. And I mean, fast forward from like you were saying, 2004, five, uh, to now. A lot of people are data savvy. A lot of political campaigns have figured it out. But we have a new era of AI. Is have you do you have any opinions on what kind of role AI would play? I know we've heard about AI being used to doctor videos and stuff like that, but is there a productive way uh, AI can play a role in politics?
Sure, I would just say supplement, right? None of what we just talked about is replaced by AI, right? AI can only make it better or make you better at it. So at the end of the day, it would be interesting, I guess, if a AI put themselves in to run for office and they could actually win, which they may be able to, right? But again, I think it's all about supplementation, not replacement. And again, you're working on a whole lot of projects that's kind of on just that specific idea in and of itself, right? How can we use AI to improve a process, to improve learning, not to replace, education and teachers. Same way with politics. If I don't have a map built in my head that says I want to win this office, right? So then I build the plan back to I've got this data. What can I learn from the data? Who can I target? Who do I talk to? How do I get out the vote in order to win? And what does that data tell me about each of those things that I can implement to make those things happen? AI is going to be worthless, right? I mean, I guess I could go to ChatGPT and say, I want to win a local election, give me the steps, right? And you know what? It'll probably build you a high level process. But again, you still got to understand not only the area that you're running in, right? Who are the people? Who are the audience? How do I talk to those people? How do I talk to different people, right? I've got a singular message, but I'm probably going to talk to a businessman, tech PhD MIDI. I'm probably going to talk to you different than I talk to the, garbage man, right? Or the guy that comes to replace the shingles on my house after the two tornadoes go through the local community. I mean, you've got to understand your audience and talk to them differently. And I don't think AI is there yet, right? So again, AI supplements what we do. It doesn't replace any of the hard work to actually, win an election and then, govern appropriately.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I really feel that it 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 will and it is making each of those steps a little more easier, a little more efficient,
Mhm.
but you cannot skip over those steps and say, "Oh, let AI take care of it." That's not happening or will happen in the real world for a long
And
time.
so, and I think you hit it right. What it probably does is it shortens the learning curve, right? Because a brand new person who's not studied, who may not know it all, may not know all the right steps to get from, you know, A to B, right? And I don't even know what they are, so it's going to be hard to get where I'm going without a map, right? To me, and I use AI a lot for this, is like, what is the map, right? I'm here today.
Yeah.
This is my goal. I want to do this. Kind of what are the steps in between, right? I may know half of them, I may know three-quarter of them, but there's probably one that I'm forgetting about that might just make it all possible, right? So again, I think using AI is all about supplementation.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like to add to your point, AI is like a supercharged. So you've got your specialists and generalists.
Mhm.
AI is kind of a really good generalist that can get you to 80% in any step, but in order to get those 20% additional 20%, you have to have people who can design. And we were talk like you mentioned about us discussing about supplementing human experiences with AI, designing AI for augmented human experiences versus just replacing it. I think that's where I think a lot of money is put into, hey, let's just replace all developers, let's just replace all lawyers, let's just replace all teachers. I think that's in my opinion, it's the wrong way of doing it because I wrote an article the other day. It's like we've got even before AI, we've got all these automated tools with, say, in customer care, we're closing down on more tickets than ever, customer care tickets, but everybody is frustrated. We're closing health in healthcare. Automated systems of people have automated a bunch of processes, but patients are frustrated. They don't feel like they're it's a human experience anymore. So we really have to. I mean, I hope there are some investors and VCs and people who are thinking about investing in technology that'll not just replace, but this thing. But even with EVs, we saw that yes, there are early adopters that went all in on EVs, but in over the last couple of years or year or two, we were seeing that everybody that wants to buy an EV, which is 8%, have got an EV, and then it's the market's kind of saturated now because people want that middle ground. A lot of times hybrids are taken off a lot more than EVs. So there people need to be thinking of those transitional times where maybe it's not even a transition time. How it's always going to be that AI is going to augment human experience.
Sure,
And
and I kind of think of it, and I just kind of had this thought as you were talking. I kind of think of AI in terms of a mentor, right? Kind of back to the kind of back to the political discussion, right? Maybe I don't know anyone that's ran for office before. Maybe I don't know any current office holders who could impart all this wisdom on me, right? Or could counsel me, or could talk to me, or help me learn. If I don't have that person, I think AI is a decent replacement, right? I don't think they can replace the discussion we're having to like make new thoughts shoot off in my head, but it could certainly, prove and be used as a mentor to help me learn kind of, hey, go down this path, right? It'll tell me all these things. I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I need to go research and think about that one.
yeah, it's unbelievably great research partner,
Hmm.
right? I don't have to be an expert in anything to start learning and getting to 70, 60, 70% there.
Mhm.
right? It's immediately, so I've got that in the palm of my hand. So I don't even have to go read up on what others have written on it. It just gives me the answer. So that's really powerful. So I think AI will generate a lot more generalists. Somebody was saying there will be billion-dollar businesses with just one person running it, right? It's entirely possible because they can streamline each part of those steps, like you were saying. Each part of those process can be made super efficient, but
Mhm.
you cannot replace all of it. So instead of maybe having to have like three, four people, like can have one person do it, but that one person have to really be dedicated to use AI and have to know how to leverage AI to for all of those different aspects. It's yeah, it's interesting times. I don't know. Is there are there any AI tools that are your favorites, your go-tos for every
Yeah, hey,
day?
I was a early Chat GPT guy, and I've just stuck with it, right? I mean, occasionally I'll play with a lot of the other tools, but it's almost like I've invested a lot of time into kind of learning how to talk to the open AI model, and now it kind of knows what I'm asking, and I know how to phrase things to get the output that I'm looking for. So I just kind of stick to it.
Yeah, I like it. But yeah, I mean, I think we're living in a. Have you seen the movie Her?
Yes,
Yeah, so I mean, it's just you can also talk to it now, so it's and it remembers everything. So it's eerie, but also cool at the same
it's
time.
eerie but helpful. I go back and forth on whether I should have it remember all the things that I've talked to it about, but I also get frustrated when it's like, I've asked this before and we've had this discussion and now you're back to not knowing anything, right? So I go back and flip that memory back on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've turned it off. I'm a little scared of it remembering everything. Also, I feel another point is if I'm okay saying the same things again and again because it'll start hallucinating if I have a big, like 1,000 chats going on and it needs to sift through all of it. It'll start hallucinating and the results are kind of um, less accurate at that point.
I agree with that. What I've found is I think there's a new feature on there where you can break your discussions up into different projects,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it seems to do better keeping into the train of thought and understanding everything, instead of like it having to sift through every single thing you've ever talked about. It seems to focus in on the output of that specific project. And I think that's helped it compartmentalize and know what the responses ought to be.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think I've been using that as well. Like create those specific projects that, hey, I want you to remember these things and nothing
Right.
else. So that's really helpful that it knows about the specific things I wanted to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, cool. So we do have this question that we ask everybody. If money and resources were not constraints, what kind of data or AI models would you wish to have um, access to or you want to build? If you had a magic wand and you had access to everything.
Goodness. What kind of answers do you get on that one, right? Hey, I think I would say just probably we've talked about all the things, right? But just a better model at the things that we've talked about here, right? So that may get us. I mean, we may be talking about AGI, right? How do we create a model that, with all appropriate security mechanisms in place, right? I mean, it gets difficult for a model to know everything it needs to know about me, that can converse with me and understand and like answer my questions and really be a sidekick assistant type thing, but then also not share that information out to others, right? So that's probably, if I could get a self-contained AGI model that I was fully confident that it could know everything and there was no security issues about that data leaking out, basically create a AGI super assistant, that would be it, right? Because again, I'm I'm multiple times more productive today based upon the AI models that are out there now. If that was like 10x or 100x, and I didn't have to worry about any security concerns or leaking my data, that's probably exactly where I would go first.
Yeah, you would store all the information about your own life there, and so it can be just accessed immediately.
All of it, right?
Like a,
So maybe it's like, so I forget what it's called in cosmology, but they're like, where are all the aliens at, right? And it's like, well, we're not going to find them because they've already uploaded themselves, right?
mm,
So maybe it's even gets to the point to where, if I could download my consciousness every night into this AGI model, who then really I wouldn't have to tell it anything. It would know all that I know, and it's not going to forget, and it's not going to procrastinate. And then we can both have our list of, tasks for the day. We may 1,000x our productivity.
yeah, yeah. There's no stopping.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate it. It's always a good hang with
Heck
you.
yeah. No, thanks for having me on. We need to do this again soon.
Absolutely.